I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. This is how to make a bezel ring part 10, and I'll show you how we've gotten past our semi-tragedy in the last video and moved on with our bezel settings. Okay, so let me start that again with Amanda's beautiful ring. So, success. That beautiful sapphire is back in there and safely held. So just goes to show you, things will happen in the studio, but we just, we fix them and move on. So we're getting ready now. We just heated up the jett-sett a tiny bit to reshape it so that we could get like a really tight hold right here. And then we're gonna start setting the second stone. So once she has everything in there, we will check the height again, and then we're on to setting. So we're now ready to set the second stone. One thing we were talking about is that we're having a little bit of trouble with slippage and the bezels getting dinged. Now, normally what we do is we put a little bit of tape there to kind of protect it, but it's not really quite doing the job enough. And what that means is that basically Amanda doesn't know her own strength. So I'm like, that's fine. But I think what we need to do though then is we need a little more than tape. So what we're gonna do is, we always have spare bits of leather in the back useful for so many arts and crafts. So what I think we're gonna do is we're gonna use tape and we're gonna put a little piece of leather there. So we have a little, thicker cushion so that even if you get carried away a little bit, it should protect it. So I think I'm not quite sure how I'm going to arrange this, but
I have a question. I know you're taping. But
that's okay. Lay it on me.
What about putting the stones into those other bezels? Would that protect the shape underneath the leather?
Well, yes. Yes, it would, but they would just keep falling out as you're trying to set, and I think it would drive you crazy. But I mean, you're right. That would hold the bezel at least roughly stone shaped, so in that way it would work, but they would just fall out every time you turned it around, and you would, I think it would drive you crazy. So here's a fancy piece of leather that I've just cut. I'm going to put it across here, and then I'm going to make some kind of bandage to hold it on there. The principle is always, if what you're doing isn't working, we find another way. There's always plan B, C, D. We got the whole alphabet, and we'll go back to A if we have to. That's how we do it. Now, the only tricky part about this is there's not a lot of room to maneuver. You know what I mean? So it's a little tricky, but that's all right. So there's the first one. I'm going to put a couple more pieces of tape so that hopefully it sort of doesn't wiggle around on us too much. And then we should be able to set without worrying too much about, anything. And we were also discussing how actually the hardest thing to do is develop a light touch. You know what I mean? Because the natural instinct is go for the kill. And there's definitely things you do need to go for the kill with. But it's not easy, to learn how to sort of control your force. So don't feel bad about that. One more piece, and we'll take a look at this. But I mean, I have made every kind of crazy setup when I'm setting. It's like whatever it takes, bottom line. Because when you or someone else is happily wearing this ring, no one will know what we did. Well, actually, yes, everyone on YouTube will know, but they won't tell. Yes, now that I'm doing the videos, everyone knows what really goes on behind the scenes.
That's good, because people are like, how much does that cost? And they don't get.
Yeah, damn right. It's like, yeah, let me tell you the suffering that we went through with that.
Yeah, handmade. It's not like, banging it out of a machine.
No. I also think sometimes people think like we're sitting here like listening to classical music and drinking tea and just sort of like, and meanwhile we're like,
we're like rock and roll tequila girls.
Yes, for sure. So take a look at that. I'm going to put one more piece of tape in there to hopefully keep it from sliding around. and then we're going to go ahead and set. And we'll do it, and if that doesn't do the trick, we'll do something else. Because guess what? If this really was fighting back and being like an absolute asshole, we could always take a little bit of jett-sett, put it in hot water, and shove it in that bezel to cover it and to keep it. So there's, like I said, there's always another solution and another solution and another solution. That's how I got so good at learning how to get around things and fix things, because I have managed to fuck things up in every imaginable way. Okay, so get a nice shot of that. So I think that that's going to do the trick. But like I said, if it doesn't, we have other tricks up our sleeves. Okay, so your next mission now is you're going to make your wire. You're going to put it in there, you know, shiny silver. We'll put the stone in. We'll check the height, and once we're like totally like, yay, it looks good, everything's groovy, then we'll start setting. So we'll check in again once the height's right.
Except, you know, being out for a week, it's really set me back mentally. I'm not in the zone yet.
You will be. Okay, so the second beautiful sapphire, bezel number 2. So we were just fooling around with like the little wire inside and her shiny sheet, but now it looks to me that the height is right. So it's time to start setting. You know, that's the hard thing really, is just to make sure we've got the height right. Because, you know, stones vary so much that even though there are general guidelines, 1/3 in, 2/3 out, and things like that for cabochons, even so, it's always sort of a judgment call, depending on the cut of the stone. But that looks fantastic. So do you want me to give you a little demo on getting the setting going? All right, hold on. Here we go. That's okay. So we've done it before. We'll do it again. Basically, you want your bezel roller right in the palm of your hand, so your thumb and your forefinger fit on either side. And what's really important is getting your elbow up, because you want this tool at a 45-degree angle. Most common mistake is to put your angle too low, and then when you press, it basically ejects the stone, and who hasn't had that happen? I mean, don't get me wrong, we're also going to like put our finger on top of here to help hold on to it until it's caught. But so, get that elbow up in the air. Okay, you see that? You're going to press in right there. And we're just getting it started. So I'm just going to press in at sort of north and south here, and then we'll do the other sides. Because normally when you set, you know, you're going sets of opposing presses. You know, you press on one side, you press on the other. And then once it's sort of held in place, then you can just start working your way around. Like so. And remember, all the force comes from your shoulder. You know, if you're like you know, doing this, that's not good. You really just lean in from the shoulder. The force goes down your arm, through the palm of your hand. That's why it's so important to have a tool that isn't sticking out, you know, that's sitting right in your palm, because that way the force comes right through. Because all I really do, like I'm short, so I tend to stand up when I set. I just kind of lean in a bit, and that gives you enough force. Okay. I'm going to put that in there and press a little bit. See what I mean? And then we'll do the other side. So we just start pinching in, you know, that extra space. Like so. Okay? And then basically you start hitting the spots where that's why you have your finger there and the tape and everything else. You can always slip. As careful as you are, slipping is going to happen. So, okay, like so. I like to be a real life cautionary example. Don't let that happen to you. Okay, so I want you to just work on getting all those little spots in as close as you can, and then you can start kind of going around and just gently rocking this back and forth to smooth it out. Okay, and just remember, keep that elbow up high, like so. If you do that, you'll stay at a nice high angle and everything will go beautiful. Okay, so we'll check in with you in a minute. Okay, progress report. So you see, we still have a couple little spaces, but definitely we've made some progress. So what we need to do is fill in, you see like there's little tiny spaces right there between the bezel and the stone, right there, a couple little spaces. So we're gonna work on that, but we're almost there. So I thought it might behoove us to go over the hammering technique and sort of how to know that you're not doing it too hard. Because there are definitely times where you're forging metal and you're like, you know, really giving it your all and channeling your rage. But setting is not really one of those things. What I find for me is it's easier to listen to the sound that the hammer makes to understand how hard I'm hitting it. So for example, I won't do it on this, but see that? For setting, that's fine. If you're like, do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm making jokes, but genuinely, sometimes it can be hard to tell how hard you're hitting. It's easier to know by listening to the sound and then saying, oh, a little much, you know what I mean? Back it down. Or like, it's so nothing that like, okay, maybe I need to put a little extra force there. So it's just a little extra level that I find it can be helpful to listen rather than to think you have the fine muscular control. You know what I mean? Just try it, and I think it'll help. So, because this is done-ish. Like there's some tiny little gaps. It's not 100% smooth, but we're really getting to a very good place. So we're going to use this just to finish up. Okay, so I'm going to place the tool in the middle of my pinky like that. And then I'm gonna place it right on here. So you hear that sound? For setting, for this kind of a thing, that is enough. Because you see what that did right there? How just hitting that little spot, that kind of smoothed out right there. Okay? And also, you know, this stage, which I call like stage 2. Oh, you see? Let me put a little piece of tape there. It's just the tool was hitting the edge a little bit. Probably our leather slid over a little. Let me excavate for a sec. It looks good though. That's the first mark. That's the first hit. And I did it, so you can blame it on me. And I kind of slide it over a little bit more. Put one piece of fresh tape there and hopefully that'll do it. Because we're really almost done. Okay. You know what I think actually? I think I'm going to get out the straight setter, which is the slightly smaller tool of this, to work right there so that we have a little smaller tool. Setting tool set. And it's what you use when the bezel roller is too big. You know, when you can't get in there, when you don't have a lot of room, you use this. But essentially, I'm going to use it the same. I'm going to put it in the middle of my pinky. But you see how this fits in there much more easily. So I'll leave this here so that when you need it, you've got it. And you hear the sound. It's a pretty gentle hit. See what I mean? Take a look. See how that just like smooths it out and gets in there? Okay, so I want you to go around the rest of the way and like if you've got room to get in there, use the bezel roller, you know what I mean? But when you don't, when things get tight, you know what I mean? Use the straight setter. Okay? Okay. So there you go. Everything looks beautiful and tight. I mean, we have a little smoothing to do on the top, but we're going to do that with a Swifty wheel. So I think we're ready to go on to the next stone. 2 down and I don't know, maybe 8 to go, but progress is good.